Hi, it's me, Tracy, your literary companion. I have never been the loudest person in the room, but my reading says a lot about who I am. And my reading has always felt like a quiet little universe that I've been building in the background of my life through the years. Today, I want to open the door and show you that universe that has shifted across genres and through seasons of life. Grab your cozy cup and please join me for the Reading Shifts tag. This is the Reading Shifts tag, an original BookTube tag created by Hannah at Hannah's Books. I was tagged by the lovely Hannah, and I was also tagged by my lovely friend Daniela at An Uncommon Reader. Thank you. Thank you both. Hannah says, join me for an original tag about the ways our reading changes over time. Hannah, this was such a lovely and thoughtful tag. And there are several questions. Question number 1. How has your reading developed over time? Do the kind of books that bring you the most pleasure now differ from the books you loved most earlier in your life? If you've seen big changes in your reading since you've matured, what might explain your changing interests? Well, as many of you know, I've been a lifelong reader. I've loved books and reading since I was a child, and it's never stopped. I developed a great passion for literary and classic fiction, as well as poetry when I was a teenager, and I really dug into those for a very long time, and I still read from all of those genres. I also love nonfiction as well. I've always loved diving into a topic that interests me or something I want to or need to learn more about. I have always wanted to learn or grow more from my reading for many decades now. A lot of my reading has been the same. I would say in recent years, I've been adding more fantasy fiction to the mix. During the pandemic, I read a lot of fantasy fiction. It was nice to escape to different realms in fantasy, different worlds, different places, even different beings. But probably the biggest change is the addition of manga and graphic novels. I started reading more of those last year, and it has been a lot of fun. It's been like an unexpected happiness added to my life. And people are often surprised when I, as a mature person, am reading manga, but life should be about little surprises like that, and reading can be that surprise. Question 2. Do you find yourself choosing different books at different periods of the year? For example, do the seasons affect what you read for pleasure? Similarly, might you read very different books while on vacation? Actually, no. When this goes out, I will have filmed a special video on winter-themed books. So I do enjoy seasonal reading, but if I want a fictional story that is set in springtime, when I'm experiencing autumn, I'm going to read that. And the same goes with vacation reading. My reading doesn't change very much just because I'm on holiday. Question 3. Do specific experiences in your life ever shape what you choose to read? For example, did you read obsessively about child rearing when your kids were little? No kids here. About gardening as spring is about to begin, about the experience of grief when someone you love died, etc. Well, I find poetry covers a lot of life experiences. So poetry is with me all the time, either writing my own poetry or reading someone else's. When a topic interests me, I tend to really dig in. I'm in 200%, and that often means reading all I can about a topic, or if there's an area of personal growth that I wish to develop, I read as much as I can. Question 4. Have there been any times in your life when circumstances have limited or changed your reading in some way? Perhaps caretaking responsibilities or a big move that made it hard to find as much time to read as you'd like? Or personal illness that made it harder to concentrate? Or maybe long-term travel that might have limited your book choices? How do you deal with those circumstances? Probably the biggest change of my life with reading happened when I moved here to Norway. It was a lot, moving to a different country, getting settled here, and not least the bureaucratic and legal side of all of that. Living in a new city, learning a new language. When I arrived, my health wasn't great. I was dealing with chronic fatigue. That is a long story, and I still have problems with that. After I arrived, I was having a really difficult time with migraine headaches. Also, the very dry environment here caused a lot of things, not the least very dry skin. But I also experienced a very chronic dry and sore throat for the first 3 years that I lived here. It took my body a lot, which was already not in great shape, to adjust to the different climate. There was just a lot of adjustments, and as a result, I was reading less. After I arrived, I got a library card, so that helped a lot. The reading and the fatigue slowed down my reading, and it affected my mood as well, so there was less reading. Question 5. BookTube is full of discussions of reading slumps, when dedicated readers seem to lose interest for a while in books. Sometimes they just can't find a book that appeals to them. Have you ever experienced a slump? If so, how did you handle it? If not, do you have any advice to give people who are experiencing slumps? I don't think I've ever experienced a true reading slump, as mentioned in the previous question about a time when I was reading a bit less. I was still reading, though it was just a bit less. As advice for someone who is in a real reading slump, I would suggest try a different genre. Mix it up. Go to the library. Just go to the bookstore and browse. Pick up something and try it. And just take one book at a time. Keep it simple. And most of all, don't put any pressure or stress on yourself. Question 6. Booktubers also talk about book hangovers. When readers are so moved by a book, they find it difficult to move on to a new book. Have you ever felt this way? Yes, I have experienced book hangovers, movie hangovers too, actually. I had a real bad book hangover after reading The Strange the Dreamer duology by Laini Taylor. I thought about that story. I still think about that story almost 2 years after reading it. I just loved the characters and the romance of that story. Keeping with fantasy, though, the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo is some good hangover reading if you need some. The Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien, of course. Yumi the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. Something else would be the Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. That's some really emotional reading. And for some classic literature, The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton, Middlemarch by George Eliot, A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. I read that as a teenager, and that gave me quite the book hangover. Now that I think about it, I've had a lot of good book hangovers during my life of reading. Question 7. Tell us about a few books that almost always work for you. Something that might have remained a favorite throughout your life despite changing reading tastes. Something that almost always seems to hit just the right spot when you need a lift. Or perhaps some lifetime book hangover where the text will always be at the back of your mind. Is it cheating to say that maybe my response to the previous question is enough? Maybe you've had enough of my book hangovers. There is a lot of good classic literature that has stayed with me throughout my life and that I still return to. Poetry too. I've mentioned Mary Oliver maybe 1,000 times since starting this channel. The work of many poets: Mary Oliver, Jane Hirshfield, Jane Kenyon, Donald Hall, David White, Wendell Berry. So many writers, so many poets. Their sensibilities echo my own inner fire. I could wax lyrical all day on poets and poetry. But a book I've carried with me since my 20s is A Journal of a Solitude by May Sarton. This is May Sarton's intimate year-long diary documenting her life in rural New England, where she seeks solitude as both a refuge and a challenge, and how it affects her creative life. Through very candid reflection, she explores the complexities of her emotional life, bouts of depression, struggles with creativity, and the pressure of the public expectations, while also finding grounding in gardening, the seasons, and the rhythms of everyday life and everyday tasks. The journal reveals her desire for deep connection, even as she fiercely guards her need for quiet and solitude. Ultimately, this offers a really nuanced portrait of the creative process and the works of the whole human being. And it is just such a beautiful, beautiful book that is how to live in tune with the seasons alongside a creative life. And this book just echoes my heart, and I just turn to it from time and time again through the years. Number 8 is to tag people, and I will tag some BookTube friends in the comments, and I will look forward to seeing your take on this one. Thank you, Hannah, for such a thoughtful and engaging tag, and for tagging me too. And thanks again, Daniela, for tagging me. It is such a joy to participate in these tags and to get to know each other a little bit better. In the comments, please share your experiences. How has reading intersected your life? Where and how have books met you? And how have they shaped your life? How has your reading changed over time? I would love to know. Thank you for joining me here today. And until we share another slice of life, another book, and another cup of tea, I wish you happy reading. And as always, I wish you much love and many blessings. I will see you again here very soon.